evening once again, and welcome to Doctor on Call, another episode. And of course, as always, we are quite happy to be with you and to share information that can, of course, assist you along the way. We welcome all our friends on GBN Television 711, our friends on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also our listeners on K105 FM. And of course, this evening we're quite happy again to have Dr. Nixon with us. Last week we looked at the social determinants of health. Very, very, very important. And this week we would look at the importance. Why are these determinants so important? Yeah. So when we get started, or we go into the actual details, we would just sort of refresh your memory on what the SDOH are, and we would start going into detail. Dr. Nixon would definitely go into some details, and we would also look at how climate change can seriously impact some aspects of the SDOH. All right, so it's a good time to say good evening and welcome to Dr. Nixon. Doc, good evening and welcome again.
Good evening to you and Grenada on this really warm night. Well, it's not as hot as it was a couple days ago, but it's still very warm. And can you open your windows to sleep tonight? Are the mosquitoes going to kill you? What is the situation with climate change and where we live, how we live? Increased diseases, access to good water. Those are all things, those are stuff that are going to determine how well we live.
Yes, indeed. So let me just go back a bit so that our listeners and viewers can sort of remember what we spoke about last week, and so would put them in a better position to follow the discussion this evening. So last week we spoke about the social determinants of health, and I did share with you an overview from the medical news today about them. So they fall into 5 broad groups, and these groups are healthcare, economic stability, education, social and community life, and neighborhood. All right, so we are going to take them. So that's basically what they are broadly, and under that, there are a lot of other little areas that we would go into details about. So, Doc, again, it's a pleasure, and folks, we thank you for staying with us. A little later on, we will open our telephone lines, and let me share with you, folks. Those of you wanting to visit Dr. Nixon, she's on the second floor at the Bruce Street Mall, and she's in office between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. You can also call her if you want to make an appointment. The number is 410-6789. And when you get there, don't be worried about the steps, all right? You can just take the elevator, and it takes you straight. In fact, when you get up the elevator, you'll see Dr. Nixon's office straight ahead. So you don't have to worry. Go, press your button, second floor, up the road, and it take you straight to Dr. Nixon. All right? Yeah, that's correct, right? Did I give correct information?
Yeah, it depends on which elevator you take. There are 2 elevators, so just as a security, it's easy to find.
Right, yes.
Right over Grenlec, remember that.
Right over Grenlec. So, folks, this is where, because remember, I'm telling you this because Dr. Nixon would not be able to diagnose an issue for you on the program. She would have to see you, talk with you, of course, check the pressure, check the sugar, check this, check that, and of course, ask you a couple of questions, and then she'd be in a better position to say to you, hey, listen, you need to be more involved, or you need to maybe look at the social determinants of health more. So, folks, don't forget.
So one of the things you're supposed to do when someone comes for, it doesn't matter what the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So you come, you bring your little daughter. She's been having asthma. I'd ask you, where do you live? Is it dusty? Like, no, we have all the Sahara dust. Do you have AC? You might have an AC. You could close your window so your daughter doesn't have to inhale all of that powder, that the Sahara dust has given us. The water may not look as coffee colored as mine has been looking for the last few days. There are lots of stuff. What kind of work do you do? Who smokes in the house? Those are factors. The social history is very, very important, because the social determinants are those conditions within which we live that can enhance or disenhance the quality of life that we experience. And it's very important that we're able to enhance, to live a very good quality of life. Everybody deserves to live a good quality of life.
Yes, indeed.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So no, what I was about to say to you, because since we are going to go into some in-depth information, I'm not sure where you wanted to start. You mentioned the Sahara dust here, and it's such an important thing, because your respiratory system, if you can't breathe properly, if you have problems, getting oxygen, then that's a problem. And of course, the Sahara dust, they can create all these problems together with things like particulate matter and all of that. They can create problems for you. So, look, I'm not sure where you want to start, but of course, it's yours. So take it and run with it.
So, like I said, last week we talked about a lot of things. We talked about your level of education. We talked about what kind of work you do, your gender, how good is the health system, etc. But we didn't get around to discussing it. The point is, we have to figure out how these determinants, these factors influence how healthy we will be or how not healthy we will be.
Right.
How do they influence our health at the end of the day? Because we don't live in isolation. We don't live in a nice little box, right? We live in an environment where there are lots of factors that are going to determine. So you may say, well, again, I'm going to go back to asthma, or I'm getting these itchy eyes and allergies because and yeah, I can give you medication, but we need to see how can we fix this? How can we prevent it above all, right? Or a woman can come down with cancer of the cervix. Do you have access to healthcare? That's a determinant, okay? Can you go to a health center? Well, where I live, it rain and I live on a hill, and when rain fall, I literally have to get a piece of board and slide up the hill. Do you understand what I'm saying? Or the gentleman who would like to check the prostates. But I work for Mr. Joe in St. George's and I live in Paradise. I have to leave home 5 o'clock in the morning to start working at 7 o'clock. By the time I get out, the clinic is closed. Clinics are not open. Those are things. So you might develop your disease because you have not been able to screen for your disease, or your pressure might be out of control because you don't have a job, or you don't have a clinic to go to, you can't afford the medications, you live alone, nobody reminds you, your diet is poor, you're eating too much ramen with all that salt. All of those things, the things that influence your life, that make you sick. Yeah, and you may have hypertension because everybody else in your family has had hypertension, but you may be able to control it if you could go to the doctor. You may be able to control or not have, or get a treatment for changes in the cervix, women, and not have thing because you have access to health care. And you could go to the doctor early. Let's say you had been for 5 years, and when we check, you have some changes on the cervix, but you have gone and we can see it and you have access to care. Those are the things. So it's not because you're not advertising and so, but because something has come up and you have not had what is required to create the environment in which you can stay well. In other words, there are factors against you that are going to determine whether or not you get sick or whether or not you stay healthy.
Yes, okay? Indeed. Yes, indeed.
So, I don't know, housing has been on my mind, and I think it's because we can approach in the hurricane season.
Yes.
And I'm very concerned. So the whole issue of climate change. Climate change is real, okay? Who already this year we have actually surpassed the temperatures that we experienced last year, and last year was not cute, nor cool. And we're in April, where little rain usually falls and nights are cool, right? That's not happening for us yet. I have grave concern as to how my health and the health of all the people of Grenada will be affected if something happens to their homes. I wasn't here during after Ivan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I so many roofs that were lost. How did people survive? I know there's a lot of illness and death that came about as a result of stress that people experience. There are many people I know personally, who died because they had heart attacks and stress-related disorders that just they could not function. And some people didn't die in 2 weeks. Some people died months later or a year later. But people died because everybody has a right. Everybody have a right to live in a safe space and a space that does not hamper how well you can be. Because we talked about it last week already, that health is a right. Being healthy, being able to live a life where you can preserve your life, you can live a quality of life, you can have your vaccines, blah, blah, blah. It's a right that each human being has. So how does housing affect our health? I think that housing and health are intimately related. I could probably start on a negative of homelessness. And while we don't have a big problem with homelessness, we do have homeless people who live in Grenada. Can we agree on that?
Yes.
Yes, we do have people who are homeless who live in Grenada. Now, I'm going to talk about homelessness a little down the road because there's some not so nice things that happen. So, where do I live? Where is my domicile? What it is? Where do I live? Do I live in... Tell me a nice place. Where you live?
Bela. Bela.
That actually sounds exotic, like I live in some gated community.
No, dry, very dry area.
And it is very dry for everybody now, okay? Where do I live, okay? Do you... close your gate and you know your car is safe? Or when you park your car outside, that is if you have a car, right? You have a car. When you park your car, does it put other people at risk? Does it put people at risk for accidents? Can somebody else pass and mash up your car or drive into your car because you park it on the corner? But that is where you are. So where your house is located is important. Do you have a little front yard with a little bit of green or a place that you can grow your vegetables? We like lawns, but we can't eat lawns, okay? So people have been encouraging people to have nice vegetable gardens in front. And like we said last week, if you have a little garden the size of your car, so where is it? Is it flat land so you can come out? Let's say I'm 75 years old. I don't need to be living on top of no hill. I don't need to have to cross a river to get to my house. I don't need to have to any rickety boards that are broken down. So what is the environment around this house like? Is it rocky? Does it have a flat space that I can exercise, I can walk around, I can plant some food, my children can run outside and play? Ring a roses and skip and run up and down and play bat and ball in the road, right? Because those things are important. Priorities is important. Is it up on a hill? Is it flat? Think about it. And I want people to think about, where do I live? Everybody who's listening tonight, where do I live? Is it a healthy space? Okay? Is it in a city or in the country? is what does it make a difference? Because yes, it does. If you live in a country, you might have a little more space. If you live in a city, you might live in an apartment area. It might be noisy from cars. It might be dusty. And we can extend a mind beyond Grenada. But the truth is, if I live in problems with people, conflict started as a result of not having enough space. Okay, you park your car on my side of the street. You keep putting your garbage at the bottom of the stairs, and I can't pass in the morning when I'm going to work. Those things, the space is so limited. But do you live a place net or close where there's toxicity? And we have a caller who calls about the environment all the time with the burning of the cane out in the Wester Hall area, on that side, on the
Yes, indeed. And folks, please bear with us. We're experiencing some little internet issues, so bear with us, please.
Yeah, we are having internet issues.
Yes, we are.
The internet has been. We couldn't have had this show last night because there was no internet.
Yes, and I know they were doing some work. Well, what I saw was in the Grenville area, so I'm not sure.
But it's still very difficult.
Yes, indeed.
So can you hear me now?
Yes, I'm hearing you. It's just that sometimes you freeze for a little bit.
Oh, and you're the one who look like you're freezing. So, is that toxic air? Do you live near a sewage plant? There are rats and other stuff that invade your property and destroy it. Do you have access to the health facilities? There's a church nearby, a school close by, so the children can attend. What kind of, and of course, want to know the health facilities, because if you have a health facilities, you can have your vaccines. Your wife can have antenatal care, care during pregnancy. Seniors can walk to the clinic. They can walk to what other things happen in the clinic in the afternoon, like when you're doing the chronic disease self-management program. People with wounds can get there, okay? That's part of housing. Are you living close to the things that are necessary for your basic well-being? Now, do you have access to transportation, so you can go to the health center if it's a little way, that you can go to work, kids can get to school safely? Are the roads in good condition? So where that place where you sleep, that place where you get recreation, the place where you eat food, where it's located is very, very important. What are the seasons like? We have dry season and wet season, but suppose we lived in a temperate country. Is it really very cold? Do you have appropriate heating? In our case, do you have appropriate ventilation? Do you have mesh in your windows that prevent mosquitoes? And we know that there is a rise in vector-borne or other animals-borne disease. So like we have leptospirosis that the rats bring around. So if they're down in the garbage, they can come and put drop-ins on your table and you may not see it. Or they may go into your cupboard and urinate on your tins. So, and we talked about burning of bush. What about, is your house built in a place where there is a lot of crime? Are your children safe to walk on the road? Do your girls get sexually harassed? Do they get sexually molested because the environment isn't safe? Those are very important things, okay, for you to know. Do you have, if in the case of your health center, can you get there so you can have not just vaccines for your children and antenatal care and early childhood care, but also screening for diseases like hypertension, diabetes, doing cancers, and just learning generally how we feed ourselves and how we stay well? Do we get eye care? Do we have dental care accessible to us? Right? And of course, can you find the medications should you be found ill? Can you find the medications that may be necessary for you to stay well? That just has to do with where you live. But then again, the quality of the house. Do you live in a dry weather house? So you experience scattered showers when a little drizzle come down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Is the house, is it partitioned? Does it suffice for the amount of people who live in the house? Or do you sleep on top of each other, or do you take turns? Insecurity. I don't want to be sleeping in the bed where my parents sleep or my sister and her boyfriend sleep, and 6 of us in the room with children, adults, everybody. I don't want my child, or I don't want anybody's child to be living like that. So we have to ensure that the whole uncomplicated lives. Okay? Do you have pipe-borne water? Or do we have to go down to the river and get dirty water while Mr. John has his car wash up the road? Or the guy who does batteries, getting the lead into the water, is that what happens or not? Right? Or do we have safe, reliable source of water, even if there's a pipe in the yard? Or do we have water in our house that and not just empty pipes? Because I've heard people complain. Water is very necessary for us to live a basic hygiene. Does that exist? So that is how housing, that's some of how housing, right? But then again, like we started talking initially about the structure of your house. I don't have a problem with a wooden house. I would live in a wooden house. I have lived in wooden houses, okay? But is it safe? Or does it have wood ants all over? Does it have safe windows, so if there's a hurricane, like I said, big shower rain come, am I at risk for being injured or having any trauma, whatever, as a result of the quality of house? We may not think it's necessary, but do I have access from where I live to go to a party? Can I go when there's independence celebration? Could I have where I live? Is it so remote or the road so bad that in the night I can't go? Once I get in the evening, there's no way, because bus is not coming up there. Nobody driving their good car because it's pure slate in the road that's going to cut up people's tire. Or can I get out there and be entertained? I can go to school, right? I can go when I'm going to SU. Can I leave home early? Be sure I get a bus, and when I come out late in the night from school, can I get back to home? So those are very important. Is there electricity? I don't know that there are houses still in Grenada without electricity, and I think most of us actually have indoor plumbing, right? Getting information, being able to communicate and stuff. So those are things that enhance the quality of life that we have just by house. And we talked about water. We talked about the quality of water. Okay, so are we following standards? Because I remember after Hurricane Ivan, and correct me here, the housing authority, the planning division, right, introduced new standards for building, so that your roof had to be built a certain way, so the chances of a hurricane coming would not leave you at risk for your roof disappearing, right? We know 70% of the roofs in Grenada after Hurricane Ivan were non-existent. So do we have that kind of, are we ensuring that when people build, that they follow the building codes? I've heard the sad stories, despite the fact that we have, some rules, that people make their own rules. We saw what happened, for example, out on Molinaire. Is it because somebody failed to follow the rules? Did people do whatever they want? I don't know what it is. I'm just saying, right? Because that puts people at risk. What if that thing just happened all of a sudden and people ended up in the sea in the rubble, right? So those are stuff we have. And for not just what kind of building, but is it safe? Is it correct? And we have to make sure that we don't engage in corrupt practices that can put us at risk for simply because our homes are unsafe. And I'm not saying that it has to be luxurious, because the truth is sometimes affordability is a challenge. Okay, is there access? Is there policy that enhances or allows for access to affordable housing. I know some of the houses up in St. David's, right, were recently handed over. Is it easily accessible? Place for your children to play, blah, blah, blah. Can I plant some yam and potato and corn outside in my little space? Do I have a little space? You know? What about my neighbors? Can I get along with my neighbors? Is there any encroachment by me or by them once we live in an apartment? Because we're not so accustomed here in Grenada to live in apartment settings. But how do we do this? But for most of us, we don't earn a whole lot of money in Grenada. Is there facility for ensuring that there is quality, affordable housing? What are we doing? And that comes from the top, from policymakers and from the people who lead and govern the governance of this country. So those are things. Because if you don't have a good home, you're at risk for being sick. If you don't have where to go to, you are at risk of being sick. If when you go there, it's physically almost uninhabitable, that will cause you stress and mental illness and sleeplessness and turning to habits like drinking and smoking because rickety. Okay, all of those things are very important. That housing, good housing, can be accessed by every citizen of this country. That's very important in order so that we can be well. When I go home from work in the evening, I don't want to go home where somebody's playing loud music outside my door. I don't want to go home where my neighbors are cussing all night long, or I get home and there's no water for me to cook food for my children, right? Or even to take my medications at night. No, I don't want that. You want to go into a place of harmony and comfort and be able to sit in your patio and watch the moonlight and look at all the fireflies that have been flying around in this month. You want to have that because those things enhance how well you live.
Right.
And I'm not asking for luxury here. I'm just asking for basic comfort and ease. Right, and yes, Grenada is nice because it's developed, yes, but lifestyle can be very rural and easy and is that available to every single Grenadian citizen? Because that is going to determine how healthy people are and how healthy they feel.
Right. So, Doc, very, very, very well said. And there are a number of things that came out there, and I can relate to quite a bit of them. In terms of how people are affected by some of these things. And the big question is, so now that we know, under the whole issue of housing and where we live, now that we have information about the things that can impact that and what the outcome can be, the question is, and you mentioned earlier it has to come from the policy level, but how do we address all of these problems? We know that there are instances where governments engage in housing programs where you have probably low to middle income houses. But having a place to live is one thing. But the environment is also important because it can also impact where you live. If the environment, for example,
can you go back to where you were speaking about low to middle income housing? I heard nothing from there.
Right. So no, I'm saying, governments have engaged in housing programs. And I was saying that we know about low to middle income houses that governments, have built and people can get to live in them. But I'm saying living in them is one thing, but consideration must also be given to the environment. And a lot of the things you mentioned hinges heavily on the environment. Is the environment one where you have like criminal activities taking place? What about is there access to, let's say, basic health facilities? In these environments.
Yes.
Now, if that has to be done,
I'm not hearing most of what you say. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the internet is giving a lot of problems, but
it is.
Yeah. So let's just zero in on the environment. So you government, let's say for example, provides housing. But usually these houses, they are in one area, and they're usually very close together. Yeah, that in itself can be a problem, because it can create an environment that is not conducive for good health. You know,
Because it's not conducive for good relationships. It's to the spatial relationships can be very untenable.
So how do we address these things? So government has to provide houses. I mean, you know, it comes from funding, because you can't build a $200,000 house for everybody, or for 500 people. I mean, we know that is not possible.
You can give me $200,000 for 50,000.
But it's not possible, because of course there are a lot of other things that
we have to take into consideration what our situation is. What we have to look at a cultural component of existence, because that influences heavily on how people live, right?
Yeah.
Do people like living in apartments? I don't know. So maybe the younger generation, but I don't think the older people do. Because it doesn't offer that space. I remember one of our relatives, well, they become relatives, we've been so close, from Trinidad, came here. They have parents, and he was looking for space, so he wanted to buy some land to build a house. And I tell him, I don't know about that. I'm not living there. And then he says, oh, you Grenadians are so spoiled. All your custom is to run around. I said, yes, we are. But it's also important for us to maintain our mental and emotional health when we get home. I think, to answer your question directly, you know, there must be standards that determine and there are standards that determine how we build. Just like how the laws, the rules were changed to say no long eave, preferably slab roofs, which too hot, and you know what the average size of home should be and stuff. There must be laws that are made that are put into effect to ensure that housing is not only safe, but they create a happy place for the people who are going to occupy these houses. I'll share a story. You know, I always have a story, right? When I lived abroad, they were building these houses. 500 houses, big, I mean, on a bigger scale, 500 housing solutions. So there'll be a 2-bedroom house with a kitchen and a living dining and a bathroom and a little balcony, a little veranda outside. Probably 28 by 32, I don't know, something like that. And that's what they would provide. And the National Housing Trust facilitated income and stuff. No. There's a lady who worked in my office who says, nobody listened to us. They wanted to build these houses, and people would buy the houses. But when the children, we used to go up there in the pasture. And we used to run up and down. We used to have goat and sheep, and we go up there. But we know in the rain season, it's going to flood out. So when they mapped where they're going to put the house down, the people who lived in the community for decades said, you cannot build here, there, and that, because it's going to flood. Please, what are you talking about? You can engineer that. And there are probably 15 houses that could not be occupied. Simply because of the geographical, the topography, how the land is set, that rain will fall. So we have to understand, look at how land use is from a historical perspective. Right? From a historical perspective, what has happened here? What happens? So when you live in a place called East Dry River, hello, it's gonna rain, gonna come, and the place is gonna flood. Okay? When you live in Blue Hole, trust me, rain falls in Blue Hole, New River. I've seen it. Okay? And I've seen a place, houses flooded out and drowned because after a century, the rains came down for a few days. People's houses, and I don't remember the name of the place, but it had a water name. Okay? Do we have land? Do we even have a history of land slippage? Why are we going to allow people to build there? So we must first of all apply those historical things, right? And the cultural knowledge that people have as to how an environment is. Why would we allow people to build on the riverbank? No, you're not to build, because we know that riverbank is not good. Okay? It means that we insult, for want of a better word, right? The whole environmental balance that's there. You cut down trees on your side, river is going to flood, your house is going to go, your dog is going to go, your kitchen might go, whatever it is. Okay, even your clothesline, it doesn't really matter. But those things create anxiety and stress and discomfort. Right? So I think we have to look at water, where we're building. Can I get water to everybody? Can everybody get electricity? Can everybody have a space where they can a little outdoor? And we should, right? Especially if we're doing an apartment building. Do I need to build apartments or single houses or like duplexes so people are a little less comfortable? Should I build houses so that the average family of 5, or maybe there's a grandmother with an extended family, can live there? Should I build a house that I can guarantee people will have for 50 years at least? Okay? Even regardless of what materials am I going to use? Am I going to use wood or am I going to use concrete? The depth of the concrete, the how the roof is, do I put on hurricane straps or not? The things that make people safe and comfortable, right? Those things must be considered, right? If you're going to build houses. And sometimes the government may also need to take some of the risk on their own and mitigate, take the risk. They have to mitigate against the risk that people can have. So they may have to pay to change the rate, how the water comes off the hills, and Grenada is all hills. They'll have to change where we're going to pass to get into the property, even if we used to get the other way. Do we have to destroy the pasture where people go and play cricket in order to build? Those are the things we have to consider so that people can have houses in places that are healthy. Are we going to allow build of houses where there is constant burning? Are we to constant burning of fuel? There's a lot of noise. Are you going to build a house next to the highway? You know, when you drive through the U.S., like in big cities, like you drive through Maryland and stuff, where they've had a lot of development, you can be close to the highway, have 8-lane highways, right? And you just hear like a buzzing because they're just all these trees. Because they put the trees back, one, to make sure that the land stays, or they don't cut those trees. One, to make sure the land stays, and two, so that the trees absorb all the noise. Are we going to put houses for people where there's noise? Or when I drive into a community, do I just hear the gleeful sound of children playing, or neighbors talking, or playing dominoes? What am I going to hear? Am I going to hear loud music because of a rum shop right next to it? And people with babies and older people with illnesses are there. Those are the considerations. How does a housing environment, how do we construct healthy housing environments? How do we employ the rules of building? Why would I allow a mechanic to come and build next to a daycare? Okay? Why would I allow who does body work to build next to somebody's cook shop where they sell food? Why? Why would I allow like a mechanic, like I said, the guy who change batteries, to build and there's running water and all the lead, and so the little children have challenges that they have contact with lead, and we have all the problems that we have. Are we going to ensure that people can plant food? It is very important. We talk about sustainability. Food is one of the things we're going to have to be secure about. We're going to have to make sure that people can. We tell people to plant, but plant where? If we put them in concrete jungles. And we know that in other environments in the Caribbean where they put concrete jungles, these buildings, there's these big concrete buildings, yes, while it provides some safe covering, there's little recreation, there's a lot of competition for space, and often there's an upsurge of crime related because of the frustration that people experience and the kind of activities that happen there. So those are the things we have to do to ensure that people live in houses that don't make them sick.
Right. Very good. Very good. Now, I want to flip the coin a little bit. And so... So we've done that. So let's say government has done that, and you've provided for people who are not in a position to provide their own housing. Government has provided housing for them, and the houses are properly built, and all of that. Now, what about the people? Do they have a responsibility to ensure that they play their part in ensuring that the social determinants of health are given serious consideration and they are maintained and supported so it can help these same people enjoy the best possible health? For example, are we going to ensure, or are these people going to ensure that they keep the surroundings tidy? They don't litter. They don't throw their garbage all over the place. What say you?
So I say that I have no problem with when you're building housing communities that you have covenants.
Right.
It's important. You must have an agreement that I will maintain this place. I will keep it clean. I would maintain my house. I'm not going to build 40 roofs on top of it, right? And because most of those developments have standards, you can't change the face of your building. You can build behind. That you can set up a garage. I know how we like to gather junk so that we can have mosquitoes and rats and everything that come into the community, right? Because if we have old cars, water falling there, and mosquito, like one drop of water and you'd have mosquitoes breeding. Trust me, that's all a mosquito needs to hatch her eggs, right? So I think we should have covenant and people should understand. Because I also think our population deserves to be educated about what healthy home life is. And not talk about what you're cooking today, because that is also important. But what healthy housing situations are like. So we providing this, it might be fine. It might be West Corinth or it might be Mount Gay or wherever housing solution. And I want people to understand, I'm not really talking about any specific housing problem. I'm just saying we have to provide housing, and sometimes it's going to be housing, a housing scheme, okay? But we have to know, we have to have a sense of responsibility. We have to be taught to be responsible housekeepers or homekeepers, okay? Everybody must be measured by the same cord, the same yardstick. Here's a home, but this is how you're going to have to live with your neighbors. And we have standards. There are standards that are established. It's a question of employing them.
Right. Wonderful indeed. Now, let's just go back a bit. So aside from, let's say, what is being provided for people, so people have their own little houses, but of course we understand, and you mentioned it, the financial constraints that some people face. All right. So, an individual may not be able to build a concrete house, to protect them from hurricane or whatever it is. But they have, maybe a simple wooden house. Are we going to ensure then that these houses are built in such a way, and you mentioned it earlier, because I think this is very, very important. What about issues, for example, like you mentioned hurricanes, but we did not mention things like fire and stuff like that, which is, people who are in wooden houses are a little more at risk. And I mentioned, we just heard about that rather sad situation in the Chantemille area, where about five people.
Houses.
Yes.
One afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we have to, and fire is one thing on its own that we can spend a week talking about. Okay, when it happens, it doesn't happen very, very often. When it happens, it can be devastating. Okay. Where are you gonna cook?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to have electricity? Because you don't want you want to be cooking on the coal pot and a piece of coals fall out of the coal pot and you don't even see it, right? Because it fall on a side and you don't know it is. And when you come, the house is enveloped, right? You want to have electricity so that you don't have to light candle that might fall down, And it's while the government is responsible for ensuring that all of these basic amenities reach the people, right? They, like electricity and access to, good ways of cooking. You can cook on coal pot, but make a little stand outside and cook on it, or make sure where it is concrete on the ground, right? There must be standards, because I think even building a wooden home, you must have established standards, right? And the planning department needs to support and educate and help people to build houses that can last them long, safe, so that people don't have challenging mold because they don't have good ventilation. And what molds do, they make us sick. They give us severe, they give us skin infections. They give us infections in our respiratory, in our breathing tract, right? They give us infections in our brain and kill us, right? That can happen. Make sure that there's proper ventilation in the house. Because I see these days, we get into this habit of building houses that look like they're in America. These big concrete houses with one little window, like a peephole window on one side. Hello. Maybe because people are using AC. But AC is not entirely nice for our environment. Okay, we know that it causes destruction in the environment. What happened to having windows that you could open and let the breeze blow through? The more we use things like air conditioning and stuff, the more we use our cars, the more it's going to be, more our environment, the air is going to be become toxic. So we need to guide. It doesn't really matter what you're building. We need to make sure that it's safe for you, safe for the environment, and safe for your neighbors. The heat and the ventilation. And we could talk about how heat, we talk about in climate change, okay? Because climate change is real to us. So when I'm building a house, my house must be able to conquer whatever challenges the climate brings for me. Not just the hurricanes and the more rain and stuff, but it must also be able to, I must have good ventilation in my house, right? I must not have heat that causes me stress, sleeplessness. I go to work, I curse all my staff, I lose my job. I must be able to live in a space that makes me rested and happy in the morning, that's safe, regardless of the size, regardless of what it's made of. And it must be made of materials that are safe, that are durable, right? They might cost, but they must be safe and durable. That's what, and compatible with our environment, right? We need guidance. People need to be, there must be a place where I can go and say, I want to build our 1-bedroom house or 1-room house. What do I need to put in here? Where do I put my bathroom, right? You should have a bathroom. Let's make that clear, all right? So even if you build a little 1-bedroom board house and you want to put a latrine, that's your business, right? But you should be able to have, since we have running water, have your good, what we call a water closet, a good toilet, and you must also have a nice place to bathe and shower and place to store and place to make sure that you're safe, and electricity in the house and all those things. This is 21st century, and we have AI, artificial intelligence. So let's be humanly intelligent and make good choices when we're going to set ourselves up.
Right.
I wanted to talk about overcrowding.
Yes, yeah, well, I was going to come to that. The amount of people, in one environment. And also on a broader scale, we did mention it, for example, when you live in, let's say, in a housing settlement, because of the number of people living there, it can create problem. What about the number of people living in a house? What about the size of family? Should we be paying attention to that?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And there must be ways to guide people as to how to build and to support families to build so that families can live comfortably. We cannot develop like that, okay? And we talk about globalization. We don't talk about it a whole lot now, but every single treaty that's written in relation to how you build, how you live, what are your health things are things that we sign on to as a country, right? We're not living separate from the rest of the world. And so we should be guided by appropriately implemented global directions. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I can't build like how I build in Massachusetts because I'm not having winter. I can probably build. I don't have hurricanes in Massachusetts, right? So I can build a wooden house, put metal siding because the snow will drive against it and protect it. I can't do that. The standards on which I have to build here must be different. But we need to support people. There must be some way that people can be supported to live in houses that are safe and where they can live, like I said, not on top of each other. Okay? So accessing funds for building homes, ensuring that low-income housing is available to people is very important, okay? And taking into consideration, we talked about overcrowding and the decrease of privacy and the stresses that children and even women and the abuse that can exist in an environment like that, because everybody's so much on top of each other, so there's a lot of tension in the house. So everybody's stressed out, right? And that's a form of illness, okay? You have mental illness, where you don't want to have individuals living in the house who smoke, who drink, who are profane when they come home. Their children are not supposed to be exposed to that kind of influences, not that kind of stress, okay? So we talked about climate change and more storms. We're probably going to have less hurricanes, but they're going to be bigger. So that means that when we build, we have to build very well. When we build, we have to build very well, because even some of the houses that look okay now, when hurricane comes, we be seeing more Category 5 storms, 4 or 5, okay? What if we had a Category 5 storm? Can we manage it? Can my house manage it? Those are the things you have to take into consideration. So education of people in relation to how they build their homes, right, is very important. What they do, what they put down. I remember living abroad, and where you have like yards, and we have some places like this, right, where you have a common washroom, a common bathroom, and the young girls complaining that they'll go down to the bathroom to bathe early in the morning because they live far from their school, and they go to the bathroom to bathe, and there's always this one guy, the guy with the towel on his shoulder, half naked with him toothbrush, waiting, right? So she has more privacy. That disenhances your sense of self, right? Lowers your self-esteem. Would he touch you? Would he rape you? Why must you feel insecure just to go and take a bath? Why must you feel insecure just to go use the toilet? Those kinds of stuff. Why does everybody need to know when you go to the toilet to have your menstruation, all of that? So we have to consider those situations when we building our homes to ensure that the quality of life, especially for our children, is thing. Does my neighborhood, and you mentioned one of it, the whole thing of social relations, how we get along, man?
Yeah.
How things going? Can my neighbor and I cook oil long and share? Can we come together, 6 of us, and say, hey, we're cooking oil long this weekend, and we're playing dominoes, and we're making some marby, drinking, some water, boabande, whatever people drink, right? Can we? No, people drink rum. It's a reality.
No, of
right?
course they do.
Right? Can we do this and be healthy? Is my home environment healthy? If I have to go, can I ask my neighbor to look after my children, especially if I'm a single mother and I have younger children who need to be supervised? And without having to consider, oh man, that man going to touch my daughter, or they're going to pull my children ears, or my children are so rude I can't send them to anybody's houses. But how safe are our children in these environments is very important. But above all, are the social relations good? Let's say, for example, I came from hospital and I had cancer, right? And I had surgery. Can I depend on your wife to cook a pot of soup for me? And I'm a single mother. I had breast cancer and I had surgery, God forbid. But am I going to ensure that the children go to school, or my neighbor's going to make sure that my children go to school, give them a ride because I can't drive? Would somebody come and help me, or help my adolescent daughter make sure she puts the clothes in the laundry while I recuperate? Do you understand? Those are the things. How do relationships in these community exist that enhances the well-being, the emotional, social, spiritual well-being of communities, of people in a community? Because that is going to tell you how well or unwell people are. And of course, can I exercise? If you catch up everybody on one thing, can I exercise in an apartment building that have 6 floors? Yes, it might have an elevator that doesn't work all the time, but can I exercise? Is there a community place where you could go and play 6-a-side football, or play windball cricket without breaking everybody's windows? Does it exist? Or somewhere that's accessible for community life to take place, and more so for people to be able to exercise, because we're asking all of that.
Right, wonderful indeed. Doc, let's take a short break. When we come back, we're going to open the telephone lines and we'll take questions from our listeners.
Quickly talk about homelessness.
Yes, and once we come back, we can also talk about that. So stay with us, folks. We'll be back with you in just a moment.
Hello and welcome to the Super 6 Draw presentation for this evening, Tuesday, the 23rd of April, 2024. I am your hostess, Kijan Smith. Super 6 is a multi-jurisdictional game owned by Winlot Inc. and is played within the islands of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dominica, Grenada, and St. Lucia. Tonight's jackpot is valued at $210,000. We'll now get ready to select your free ticket letter. Good luck. Ticket letter is B. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back with tonight's winning numbers.
More jackpot money, more reasons to play this game. More money for way. Super 6 a bigger jackpot game.
Now you love Super 6 even more. With more money,
the jackpot galore. Play more, win more, have more fun. With more jackpot money,
Super 6 is my number one.
With the new and improved Super 6 team, the jackpot keep growing and growing.
I'm growing.
More jackpot money, more reasons to play this game. More money for way. Super 6 a bigger jackpot game. Super 6, bigger jackpots, more chances to win.
Welcome back. Let's now get ready for your Super 6 winning numbers. Good luck. The first number is 22. The second number is 18. The third number is 11. The fourth number is 8. The fifth number is 13. And the final number is 12. To recap, your Super 6 winning numbers are 22, 18, 11, 8, 13, 12, and your free ticket letter is B. Tonight's winning numbers were drawn under the supervision of an auditor from BDO. Please contact your relevant Central Lottery office for further information on the payment of prizes. Thank you all for playing responsibly, and remember, with Super 6, there are bigger jackpots and more chances to win. Our next Super 6 draw takes place on Friday, the 26th of April, 2024. Until then, have yourself a wonderful evening.
Are you a VIP? Have you taken the necessary steps to safeguard your child's health? Let's get it right. Get your child on their vaccination schedule. Our national protection and coverage is our national priority. our actions will impact Grenada's health and wellness. Let's make childhood immunization and vaccination number one. I am Senator Jonathan Lacroix, and I am a VIP champion. Let's make all our children VIPs, vaccinated, immunized, and protected.
Let's all be VIP champions.
A message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Religious Affairs, Be a VIP Childhood Vaccination and Immunization Campaign in collaboration with UNICEF and the Pan American Health Organization.
In honor of the Grenada 50th Independence, the Royal Grenada Police Force Band presents the second annual Mother's Night Out. Mother's Night Out. The concerts all going down on Sunday, May 12th from 5 p.m. at the Grenada Trade Center. Featuring live from TNT. It's crazy.
Time to come. America will have a black president.
John King.
How many more?
June Lodge. Together with the Hitman Inspector, Valine Ned, Samantha Dixon, Alex Phillip, Shane, Innocent, General PP, Kareem, Alexis, Ron Barry, the African Man, and much more. Dress code elegant. It's Mother's Night Out, the Grenada Trade Center from 5 p.m. on Sunday, May 12th. Lots of giveaways and prizes to be won. Champagne and roses on entry. You don't want to miss this amazing experience for mothers. Your tickets only $70 and are available from Kittens Pharmacy in Grand Dance and Grenville, Grenadian Optical, the Police Bandhouse, Police Canteen. Make this a date for mothers.
Whatever you've been putting off, do it today with a loan of up to $20,000 from Cost Ready Cash. No collateral needed, flexible payment terms, and fast approval. All you need is your ID, proof of address, job letter, payslip, and 2 references. Visit your nearest Cost Ready Cash location today or apply online at Coach.com. Why wait? Get it done today at Cost Ready Cash. We are ready when you are. Conditions apply. Conditions apply. Conditions apply.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Dr. and Cole. Dr. Nixon is with us, and we're looking at the importance of the social determinants, focusing heavily on housing, and of course our environment, our neighborhood, all of these things, and how not being in the right situation can impact our health. Our telephone line is open. The number is 435-2041. So if you have any questions you would like to ask, you can definitely do so now. The telephone number again, 435-2041, or you can also send your question or comment on our WhatsApp platform. The number same, 435-2041, or on our Facebook page. If you're viewing there, you can place your comments or your questions there. All right, so the telephone number, 435-2041. Give us a call, and we'll be more than happy to share with you whatever information that you need. Doc, excuse me, we're going to talk a little bit about homelessness, because from time to time we move around and we do see people on the streets, not cared for. Sometimes you wonder whether or not they have families, and you see them in conditions that are not, of course, humane.
And I want us also, because we've all seen, all of us who have traveled have seen homeless people on the streets, and you wonder how they get there. And often it's because the system has failed them, okay? Whether they're ill before. And it's a kind of chicken and egg situation. Does homelessness cause illness, or does illness cause homelessness? And yes to both questions. Mm-hmm. So, for example, poor health can make you become homeless. You can lose your home, you can't pay your mortgage, right? You can't build a house because you're not well. So we talk about overcrowding. Some people have to stay on and live in their family home because they simply can't afford to buy a house, right? Or because they're too sick to work and reach that threshold where they can afford to get their own home.
Okay, Doc,
right?
just hold 1 sec. We have a caller on the line.
Okay.
Dr. on call, good evening.
Hi, good evening to you, Godfrey, and Dr. Nixon. This is the most interesting discourse you're having here tonight. It is very interesting that in a country where our population hasn't grown, I would say it hasn't grown really in the last 20, 30 years, we're having a situation where housing is becoming so much...
I love what you just said after 30 years.
Our population has not grown. That's what he says.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It hasn't really grown. Yet we're having the problem with housing. Now, also, we have to look at the fact that there was state-assisted housing before, during the GLP administration and so, but they were targeted at different groups, because at that time the population resided mainly in the rural areas.
In the rural areas.
Yes, they were not. There were still folks working on plantations, working in estates. There were teachers. There were not so many police officers, and the public service was much smaller.
And we didn't have so many people who provided services.
Right. The commercial center was much smaller than it is today. And while there were always people coming into town, the numbers were much smaller. Well, we've had that rural-urban drift, or that migration from the rural areas and into the urban area, and this has created a problem with the housing. So that while, for instance, in the Eric Gary housing program, they provided housing for middle income persons like public servants, teachers, police officers, and these houses were like a start. Very important start.
The homes, yes.
Yes, from those houses, if you look at those even in Grandlands here, on the Morris Bishop Highway,
indeed,
they grew into massive buildings because you had space around it. You could plant fruit trees, you can do things, and you were not breathing into each other's windows, and it was something that you can use. Today, what we're building are structures that folks will only remain in until they can get out of it to somewhere better. So whereas before, you had it as a start.
We're not establishing homes.
Precisely. We're just putting some living quarters that folks will only remain there as long as they need to. So that they will move out once they graduate from that. And it is unfortunate that the planning we have done, the rural and urban planning, has not taken care of the need to provide opportunities, job opportunities in the rural areas, so people can stay and work where they belong. There was also the extended family situation where folks really didn't need the kind of, housing. Folks may come into town and work and go back up in the country on the weekend and live with the kids and, who stayed with the grandmother, the grand aunt, and so. But now you have people, a single mother will come down and live in Montour somewhere, build some kind of little structure, and she's there with her kids who are unsupervised. They don't have uncles and granduncles and so, but they have visits from other people who come in and out of that little house. And this is part of the problems we're having now with the anger and the aggravate, all the things we're having in our society. So what I'm saying is this, that we have to look at this matter of housing. You spoke about not having space to move. Let's think about the fact about what's happening now with cannabis. Could you imagine cannabis being decriminalized, the use of it? And your neighbor is
that could be a whole conversation, okay? Because cannabis decriminalization does not mean legalization. So
what I'm saying is, but could you imagine your neighbor the person lives above you and the one living below is smoking. And because it is not a criminal act, you cannot stop them from smoking, but you have your kids there.
I've had a friend, a very close friend, who has had to move house because her neighbor insisted on smoking in the patio downstairs her apartment, and became untenable because it all comes and stays in her room, in her living room. So I understand what you're saying.
And that could become a very serious environmental and I would say a mental health issue.
But
for
it can,
families moving forward.
but caller, it can also become a contentious issue as well, and the problem could be complicated.
Right.
Yes.
Complicate the whole thing.
Interpersonal relationships can be severely.
Everything. They not only is this person a bit filthy and they playing loud music, no, they're smoking ganja. So we have to be very careful. I mean, I think that path that has been taken, it may seem necessary as a short-term thing, but to me, it may be setting us up for serious social problems down the road.
And that is why I was saying earlier, we have to look at how other societies have dealt with the issue of housing in order to maintain health. So, for example, we know in cities, inner cities, let's say, in the U.S., for example, the challenges with access to fruit, fresh fruit, okay? Talking about for your children to have as a snack. But the people in the cities, especially the working class and the poor, don't have access to places to exercise because they live in the city. There's car up and they can't play six-a-side on the sidewalk. The kids can't play. They can't play six-a-side on the sidewalk. I'm sorry about my dog. They can't play six-a-side. They can't have the kids outside running and playing. There's gunshots on the street. And those are the things we have to look forward to not having by ensuring that we have proper social planning, because where you live is a determinant of how well you will be.
Absolutely.
Right? They can't. They don't get fresh fruit. They drink sodas. They don't get. They don't have good relationships with the neighbors because they have gangs and all the rest of it. So we have to ensure that in planning for our housing that we could disenhance the growth of those social problems that will definitely affect the health of our population. So thank you for your...
Thank you.
Most welcome.
Thank you,
most welcome
Thank
indeed.
you very much indeed, yes. Very, very important. And you know, Doc, the caller made this point there, and you know, it had me thinking, because this, you know, one little thing, one little social issue can just explode into major problems, and these are things that at a policy level we need to pay very close attention to, so that they can be avoided.
So I wanted us to look at homelessness situations, and how homelessness can. How homelessness can. I think people are hunting around where we live. How homelessness can cause people to be unwell. And we started talking about the homeless. We started talking about the homeless and how they're on the streets. They don't have equal access to health care. We don't know, they're not screened, they don't go to the dentist, they probably have lice in their head, they live on the streets, they're exposed to the elements, people treat them badly. We talk about mentally ill people being a threat to us. But the mentally ill are not as much a threat to us as we are to them. They get beaten, the women get raped. When you see a woman who doesn't really talk to anybody walking up and down the street pregnant, hello? Did she have intercourse with somebody because she needed a fix? Or did somebody abuse her? Because she can't, if she's that ill, she can't make a decision for herself. Why are women sleeping on the street? Why are men sleeping on the street? Who takes care of their health? Who checks to see if they have hypertension, diabetes, cancers, whatever? So homelessness can be a big challenge, right? They are at greater risk for having pneumonias and other infectious diseases. They are at greater risk of having violence against them, of being knocked down on the street because they walk in aimlessly, of having chronic illnesses that are undiagnosed and untreated, right? that they do not get surgical attention. And there's a high risk of chronic illnesses. There's a high risk of chronic illnesses like hypertension and diabetes. But we don't know that because we don't go in our environment. We don't go looking. But that's the truth. Okay? Premature death, right? Whereas men should live up to 71 years. Or people on the street living to that age, no, they're not. As a matter of fact, that population ages 20 years beyond their peers. A 20-year-old man would look like 40, and so we have to ensure that homelessness is disenhanced, whether they put them out because they're on the street, mentally ill, or because they're so poor they can't afford to have a house for themselves. Okay? But like I was saying also, poor health can also cause you to be homeless. You can't pay a mortgage, you can't afford to build a house, right? You have challenges like chronic illness, chronic mental illness, and other behavioral problem, right? You may lose your home and you don't have access to quality services. So it's chicken and egg that need to be addressed at the same time. Chicken and egg that have to be addressed at the same time to ensure that homelessness and poverty and homelessness and poor health do not coexist. So we're going to get rid of the homelessness and we're going to ensure that there's no poor health opportunities for any of our population by ensuring that housing and people living in decent homes are actually situations that coexist in harmony, because our population deserves to be healthy. It is a right. And this whole issue of housing, all the ins and outs of housing and living in a decent space, a safe, decent, wholesome, accessible, enjoyable, peaceful, safe space, right, must be a priority. One of the priorities to ensure that people are healthy.
Right. Let's go back to the telephone. We have a caller on the line. Doctor and call, good evening.
Hello?
Yes, good evening, caller.
Good night. I'm just calling to tell Dr. Godfrey good night. They didn't finish it. Because I want to call in the end.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, good evening, caller.
Yeah, I'm just calling to tell Dr. Godfrey good night.
Oh, okay. Lovely.
Tell him, Mrs. Hello?
Hi.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. She's listening to you.
Dr. Ducre? Mrs. Latouche.
No, this is Dr. Nixon.
Mrs. Latouche.
Okay, Mrs. Yeah. Okay, Mrs. Latouche. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. Yes.
Have a good evening.
Yes, indeed. 435-2041. Yeah. So, Doc, we someone was asking. They said that they have some stubborn moles that are building up on their walls, and they would like to know how to get rid of it once and for all.
So if you think you have mold, you can ask the health department to come and look at your space, or you can get one of those people who are trained, like the people who clean, right? But you need to figure out where the mold is coming from, because you could take bleach and other stuff, other materials, and clean your wall. But you need to figure out, am I having a leak?
Yeah, that's it. Usually there is moisture. Yeah, molds, once you see mold, there's some kind of moisture that is around.
Moisture
so you need to identify.
So you might have a leak in your roof or something. So if you're worried, because I think if you ask the health department, they will come and determine whether or not you really have a mold. They can tell you what it is. Because it is a health hazard, big health hazard, because you don't want to get infection on your brain. You don't want to get respiratory infections, skin infections, etc., because that can actually be lethal. It can actually kill you.
Yes.
So,
yes, indeed.
And you might find your children having respiratory problems all the time. They're always coughing, they're always wheezing, and it's not a simple little virus or an allergy. Mold is not cute, okay? Just as it grows on your wall, it will grow in their lungs.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. Well, Doc, we're getting close to wrap-up time. Folks, I trust, quite a lot was said on the issue of housing and our space, the importance of that. So much bears on that, especially as it relates to your health. and you probably need to just sort of go back and reflect on it. And let me just say this, folks. Those of you who probably missed the program or throughout the program, you missed a couple of things. The programs are on YouTube, so you can go to YouTube and look at it. It's also on the GBN's Facebook page. They're always there. So you can always go back, go to videos, and you can, probably relook at the video, relook the program, and just in case you missed anything, you can definitely get the information back. Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. So, Doc, any final thing in closing as we get ready to wrap?
Look, at the end of the day, we all responsible for our well-being and our family's well-being. The truth is that where we live is very important to keeping us healthy, okay? Mm-hmm. Where we live is very important to keeping us healthy. There are standards for building. If you're going to build, make sure you live within the standards. Go to the planning department, go to the Ministry of Health, go to the Ministry of Infrastructure. People can always guide you if you're concerned about the status of your house. The truth is, we also, our government has a responsibility for ensuring that the population lives in healthy spaces, that we have good homes. It's not necessarily about the luxury. Luxury will come after. But that standard way of where are my people going to live? Are they going to live in safe homes? Safe so that nobody break into your house? Safe that it doesn't catch a fire? Safe that it doesn't catch a fire if a little flame burn? Why am I having open flame in my house except in my kitchen? Am I using a coal pot? Why isn't it in a safe place? Or my open flame, is it close to that synthetic cheap little polyester curtain that is going to go, right? If it gets one little flame passes on it. Do I have electricity? Yes, we have access. Most of us do. So how am I going to make sure that what I establish is good? Are my stairs fixed? Is my house built in a place where I don't run the risk of falling and breaking my hips? Can I go to the hospital? Do I have access to go to church? My kids going to school safely? Drinking water? Toilet? Do my kids know about washing their hands? Are there facilities for that? No smokers in my house. No smokers in my house. No smokers in my house. No burning of bush and house with water running in the street from the old batteries, and that my children can come in contact with that and get extra lead, which is going to, and get lead in their bodies, which is going to make them have difficulty in learning, severe difficulty in learning. Can I plant, do I have access to building a garden, water to wet it? Can I, grow 2 tomatoes, some cucumbers, whatever it is, okay? Do I go to the clinic and get my screening because my house is in a space which is we are a little place still, but we need to make good choices. Not cutting down the bush, the trees along the river. People who use the river keep the river clean. There was an article about the river in the St. John's River, the tributary that runs through Lamode, and expulsion of effluent from a pig farm. Those things are not fair to the population. Okay. So how do the people who do industrial work in a community, how do they ensure that the quality of water, the quality of soil, can I plant there? Or am I going to throw my whatever, right? Whatever toxins I have from my farming or whatever industrial work I do. There's a responsibility to ensure that where people live, the houses, that little space, that box in which they seek comfort, enjoy their family, have good food, have good emotional state, right? Exists. Are we going to have homes where we have our children that being abused by their any adults in the house or otherwise? Are we going to have homes where criminal activities enhanced so that people live all the stress and children are abused sexually and all the rest of it. And that creates a lot of stress. Childhood trauma does not go away easily. And we see a lot of things that happens as a result of childhood trauma in adults, and we can't figure out where it comes from very young. Okay, is my home safe for my children to grow? Is my home safe for my grandmother to exist? Can she, if she's blind, can she ambulate around the house? Or my grandfather, who may have lost his leg, can he move around? Can he get access to the bathroom? Is there enough space so he can use his wheelchair or use his walker? Those are the things. And we must collaborate, and the government must understand also its responsibility in preparing those basic standards so a population can have good housing. Because where there's no housing, or there's a lack of housing, or there's poor housing, we have ill health. And where we have ill health, sometimes we can become homeless, houseless, and spaceless.
Right.
We also need to reincorporate the people who live out there. We're too small, 110,000 people. We're not supposed to have nobody walking up and down the street, and every day I see a next one. And we all have families, and we all know, oh, that's Miss Jane Dodson. Homed. Everybody lives in a safe space, that everybody gets medical care. Yes, we'll have mental illness. That's part of it. But they must way. Healthy and a dignified way. You must not drive past my house and see the other side, the other wall, because I should not have spaces or window. I don't have a window because children fling stone or just never finish the house or the window. No, we have to do better than that. We have to make sure that is not one of the determinants of poor health.
Right. Thank you so very much. So, folks, that's all the time we have this evening, and we are indeed thankful that you're able to stay with us. Thank you for your comments and your calls. It's very important to remember the social determinants of health. They do play a very, very important role. Don't take them lightly. Think in them. And even if you are not in a position to acquire the most important things that you need, but at least try and focus on these very important issues, because they are indeed very important. Doc said earlier, sometimes we go for the luxury, and the luxury is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But, sometimes we only get to realize how important some things are when we need them and they are not available. And then you realize that probably, you were in a position where you could have, made available to yourself. So think on these things, ensure that your children get good education. They have the ability to exercise good judgment. That is very, very, very important. The healthiest environment possible, try and get yourself a job. It may not be a job that's paying you a whole lot of money, but if you do have a job,
start somewhere.
Yes, you can manage your little resources, and you can, as the folks say, baby steps, and you can definitely get where you want to. So it's very important. As we continue these discussions, we also have the commercial determinants of health that we will be looking at some point. So folks, as I told you earlier, you can go back to our YouTube channel or on our Facebook page, and you can also look back at the programs. And just to let you know that Dr. Nixon, she's located at the Bruce Street Mall on the second floor. She's usually in office.
People don't know where Bruce Street Mall is. You have to say
right.
Esplanade Mall.
Esplanade Mall. Yes, the Esplanade Mall.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yes, the Esplanade Mall.
Upstairs Grenlec.
Upstairs Grenlec. So she's there from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and you can take the elevator. So you don't have to worry about walking up the steps and thinking, oh, well, that's am I going to Dr. Nixon for my knee because he hurted me, and then I still have to walk up all these steps. By the time I get there, no problem. Take the elevator, second floor, or you can call her and make an appointment, 410 410-6789. The number is 410-6789. All right? That way she'll be able to talk to you and give you a proper diagnosis. Thank you very much for staying with us, folks. It was indeed a pleasure. Be sure to join us next Tuesday at 8:30 for another episode of Doctor on Call. Do have a good night.
Have a good
All
night,
the best.
everyone.
Yes, indeed.